I finally ran 3 10Ks again. It only took 5 years of retraining my running for barefoot shoes. At age 11 or 12 I began to run. First every day, then not, due to everything hurting. I then figured out to alternate resistance training and running. This sounds like the beginning of a great running career, but I never was more than an average runner. For years I trained in a specific heart rate zone because the ads from watchmaker Polar told me so, to only run in this zone. So stupidly I did. Even during training for a race, my friends would overtake me, with my watch beeping since I was too high, meaning above 165 beats per minute, probably zone 3 or 4 in today's heart rate zone standards. I could run faster, but this limitation here, my watch kept beeping. But I stuck with it, even during the race and hill race, 3 kilometers and a couple of 100 meters in altitude. But as the others overtook me, I just ran faster than my heart rate allowed me to. Or my watch beeping everybody around me. There was something else though, injuries, especially when finally abandoning Polar's optimal zone training, which clearly didn't allow me to train with higher pulse, despite me then running with higher heart rate during races, which meant I performed without having trained specifically for this. First I figured out how to turn off the out of zone alarm, but soon I just forgot about it. Ignored it. Shut up, I am running, I thought to myself. But with running every second day came injuries. I tried to always train, no matter if I had diarrhea, eaten shortly before it rained, snowed, or I had the flu and wanted to lie in bed all day. I also trained despite pain, sometimes in my feet, sometimes in my ankles, sometimes in my shins, sometimes somewhere in my upper back. So I trained, which then multiple times resulted in me having to take off days, weeks, sometimes months. Inconsistency, the enemy of compound effects. Long story short, I stopped running for a while. I rode to a university via bike. I would sprint to a nearby river a couple of times a week, but I stopped my longer runs. I just couldn't figure out how to consistently train while becoming faster without overtraining with compounding pain. After I ran my mostly unprepared half marathon a couple of years back, I had trouble walking for weeks. Mostly the sides of my knees hurt. I hadn't been properly prepared for that run because I couldn't train properly due to accumulating pain stopping me. I had to rethink, try something else, so in 2021 I got barefoot shoes. First I had tried running in already somewhat minimalistic shoes with only a sole of maybe half a centimeter. I always used to run in cushioned running shoes. During mountain hikes, my ankles would a couple of times a day knock out to one side. Instability. With the non-running shoes, I could for the first time ever run really fast, talking about sometimes a kilometer in 2 to 3 minutes. I would not increase my output during the ascent of a hill, but then allow acceleration on the descent, resulting in ridiculous times. These times would be taken these times would be taken out often only 2 to 3 kilometers of running, then doing some calisthenics, running back afterwards. On these days I often would have eaten thousands of calories of carbs, not intentionally, but often when I would go back from a mostly low-carb diet to eating carbs, my body would spring from energy. I wanted to move, to run. During that time, I mostly only ran with a very specific technique, upright, shoulders back. I had been wearing a posture correction for weeks, months, continuously, trying to revert years of accumulated bad posture habits. And I also had to retrain my running form. I couldn't land on my heels any longer. I had to dampen the impact with my foot and leg. Because these new shoes, first 5mm, now with the Bible Barefoot Primaslide 3 2mm, just wouldn't absorb the impact of running. So for years, the maximum I would ever run was 3 kilometers. I could run these, but the different parts of my leg would wear down rapidly. I simply wasn't able to run longer, not in this form. I thought of this as sprinting. For a couple of 100 days, I would do interval training every morning. 10 minutes of running, mostly running up a hill, then slowly getting down, then running up again. And I had the hill. Until I moved somewhere else, no hills, so I couldn't demand that much resources any longer, as my still too unstable running form prevented me going all out without stumbling. Finally, I scheduled a weekly run. It was painful, it was frustrating. Why should I continue these months, years of retraining my running form? Maybe our feet just weren't built for an environment where most of what we walk on and run on is concrete. Maybe our feet, ankles, legs would simply break down under the increased impact. I still don't know. But what I now know is this. I was able to run above 10K 3 times the last 3 Sundays. First, it had snowed, so most of the steps I slid after the impact. I ran 15 kilometers that day. I almost doubted that this would be possible during my lifetime ever again. It was about 2 years of maybe missing 2 to 3 runs, not more. Before I had also trained. I ran once weekly, but I also would start running to the gym, about 700 meters, which I tried to usually run fast, and recently I picked up sprinting for first. Each 1 minute 5 times as part of my VO2 max training than 3 times. And there I saw improvements. In the beginning, it must have been about 15 kilometers per hour. I was able to run for these 1 minute intervals. Then I increased the speed. I also did a few Cooper tests, running for 12 minutes as far as you can. I fear these, as if you are running against yourself, against the part in you that screams, "Please, stop!" I can't, please. It took again months, moving up the speed 0.5 kilometers per hour each week, avoiding eating before. This would turn these sprints into nightmares. Eventually, I was able to work out earlier, allowing to train on an empty stomach. After all, I don't know what contributes how much. I only, in my eyes at least, know that I put in work consistently for months, years. After all, I started aged 11 or 12, and now finally am able to run 10K in barefoot shoes. It only took 15 years.